Be ready. Start.
Mr. Vice Chairman, Sir, I welcome the budget proposals for the year 2012-13, which are all comprehensive and which embrace most of the development plans that we have envisaged for the establishment of a socialistic society in this country. In spite of the taxation and the introduction of fresh duties, we find that the finance minister has succeeded in disturbing only a microscopic section of the people of this country to extract sufficient funds for our schemes. The finance minister has also succeeded in finding funds for almost all the development plans of this country, which will add to our good. While we discuss the general aspects of the budget, we will have to consider the activities of most of the sections that are now covered in the budget. Even though the provisions are there, I think, sir, the expenditure on some of the activities envisaged in this budget should be subjected to a thorough scrutiny. In this respect, sir, I wish to bring to the notice of this House the special feature of the educational system of this country. Some of the members have mentioned something about the educational system of this country, have remarked that the allocation of funds is not adequate and that the provision should be revised according to the needs of this country. As the honorable member was speaking in Hindi, I did not thoroughly understand what he meant, but still, sir, the educational system has created a sort of confusion in our country over the last 15 years, and every now and then we had been changing the schemes and plans for educating our children, and various states have adopted different schemes which have actually created a feeling of disintegration among the people of this country. In some of the states, they have switched on to the regional language as the medium of instruction, and in some states, they think that English should be retained as the medium of instruction. But the people believe that the medium of instruction should be Hindi, that is the national language of our country. But, sir, the time is not yet ripe for us to switch on to Hindi. So, as and when we find it feasible, we may switch on to our national language, but till that time, we will keep English as the medium of instruction in all educational institutions. Sir, the other day, the University Grants Commission submitted a report wherein they have mentioned that English should be the medium of instruction, at least in the colleges. Sir, it is my opinion that English should be retained in this country for years to come till we find that we could translate all the essential books on science and technology, etc., into Hindi, which should be able to help us in educating our boys, especially in the technical institutions, through Hindi as the medium. Here, sir, some of the members have pointed out with regard to the introduction of different types of education in the same state or in various parts of this country, we find that a majority of the children of our country are educated in the basic system, which brings out, as far as I know, second class citizens in this country who are to be governed by the boys who are sent to the public schools. Most of the children of the haves are sent to the public schools and they are imparted expert training, and when they come out they are definitely superior to those boys who undergo this basic system of education. If this basic education is considered to be the best for the development of our country in the socialistic way, we will have somehow or other to find some better means of imparting education whereby they will be able to compete with the students who are now undergoing training in the public schools. Unless we do it, we will be creating, as I previously mentioned, a second class of citizens in this country. I hope the authorities who are concerned with the planning of education in this country will review their schemes according to the suggestions that I have put forth now. In the same way, sir, our country is mainly depending on our agriculture and industries for the development of our economy. But the agriculturists are an ignorant section of our people who do not find, in spite of the development in that sector of our economy of high production, a better income as the industrial section is having in this country. The industrial section is fast improving and their standard of living has gone high. At the same time, in spite of the better production in the agricultural section, the agrarian population has not come at par with the industrial section of this country. In the same way, industrial laborers are organized. Most of them are given so many benefits and advantages according to the legislation that is passed for the betterment of industrial laborers of this country. Madam Deputy Chairman, I welcome this opportunity to make a few observations during the discussion on the finance bill. At this stage, therefore, it is better to use this opportunity to make a survey of the economic situation and find out what the present condition of the people is, whether they are satisfied, and if they are not satisfied, what the reasons are. I feel this responsibility is greater today when the American aid is likely to be reduced, and therefore we have got to stand more on our own legs. When the plan was set forth, there were three sources from which we hoped to get finance for the plan, namely our own resources from the revenues, loans within the country through savings, and thirdly, foreign help. The latter we need not discuss here. If we study the accomplishments of the plan and the resources that it has been possible to raise, we cannot deny that Our expectations have not been fulfilled, and we have therefore to find out the reasons which have led to that situation. Here, incidentally, I would like to touch in a sentence or two the entire theme of the speech of Mr. Bhupesh Gupta. It is very easy to say this should be done or this could have been done from the opposition point of view, but I would like to ask him a question and he can reply to it later in some other speech whether in Russia it would be possible for anybody not in the debate in the parliament but even outside to utter a single sentence against the government policy. In our democratic setup, we have allowed the people to criticize government policies. Even as Congress people, we are free to criticize the policies of the government. But the point is whether the doubts raised in the minds of the public by the people in the opposition who show their loyalty to a different setup would be conducive to create the enthusiasm that is necessary and the inspiration that is necessary to give their very best to fulfill the targets of the plan. This planned economy is really not a thing that will go successfully hand in hand with a democratic setup unless some other things are there, and they are the inculcation of a national spirit, giving of proper national education to develop a national outlook. Unless these things are done as they are in other countries like England, unless that type of spirit is created in the country by all the people of all types of views, not being allowed to create differences and doubts in the minds of the people, we cannot, in a democratic setup, have the success which we want, and we cannot fulfill our promises to the people. Without going further into that aspect, which really came to my mind as a result of the long speech of Mr. Bhupesh Gupta, I would like to make a few suggestions so that a proper attitude towards giving of one's best to the plan and to raise the national economy can be developed. I would like to make 3 or 4 points. Firstly, we have to see that we take steps to check corruption at any level, whether it is among the people in the public sector or among the officials. Then we have also to see that we give a proper type of education, arouse a proper spirit of service. We must also check the trends for inflation and also lay stress on austerity so that the people will feel that there is something at stake. I would not like to take much time of the house. The main problem in our country is the growing population, and in spite of all the efforts that are made to raise the standard of living and raise production, etc., the results are not as easily perceptible as they should have been. That is a separate problem by itself, but In spite of that, it is possible for the government to show better results if the government were to undertake immediately and see that some of the promises that are made, the acts that are passed, and the plans that are drawn up are properly implemented. I have been seeing this lacuna in the present position. Now the government have started a new ministry called the Coordination Ministry. It was very necessary because the plans of the different ministries sometimes were likely to go contrary to each other's aims. I do not want to go into details. For instance, take the question of the promotion of export. A commodity may be exported, but the price of that commodity in the country to the consumer may go on rising. Who is to see to that? Take tea, for example. It had to be exported, and nobody was there to see whether there was enough tea for consumption in the country and what was the price at which it was available to the consumer in the past. Stop.